Scene script. Have you ever wondered how one of the most devastating events in human history, World War II, came to be? The seeds of World War II were sown long before the first shots were fired. The peace that was to follow the war to end all wars, World War I, proved to be illusory. The Treaty of Versailles, designed to ensure lasting peace, instead sowed the seeds of resentment and revenge. Germany, saddled with the guilt of the war and burdened with reparations, found itself in a state of economic despair. This despair in turn fueled the rise of a radical nationalist party, a party led by a man with a vision of a 1,000-year Reich, Adolf Hitler. His Nazi party exploited the discontent, promising a return to German pride and power. Meanwhile, across the Alps in Italy, a similar story was unfolding. Fascism, under the leadership of Benito Mussolini, promised a new Roman Empire. The allure of a return to past glory resonated with Italians, tired of post-war economic struggles and political instability. Far to the east, the sun was rising on a militaristic Japan. With an expansionist policy under the guise of the Greater East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere, Japan sought to extend its influence across Asia and the Pacific. The League of Nations, established to prevent such global conflicts, found itself toothless and ineffective. The failure to prevent Italy's invasion of Ethiopia and Japan's invasion of Manchuria highlighted the League's impotence. The world watched as the aggressors grew bolder, and the stage was set for the greatest conflict in human history. The world was on a collision course, with tensions simmering and alliances forming. The global stage was set, with the actors in their places ready for the curtain to rise on a war that would reshape the world. With the world stage set, the world was about to witness a war like no other. September 1st, 1939, a day that changed the course of history. On this day, the world found itself on the precipice of a conflict unlike any it had seen before. The German forces, under the command of Adolf Hitler, launched a full-scale invasion of Poland. This marked the beginning of the Second World War, a conflict that would leave an indelible mark on the pages of history. In a matter of just over a month, Poland was overrun. The speed and ferocity of the German advance, known as the Blitzkrieg or Lightning War, took the world by surprise. It was a chilling demonstration of the destructive power of modern warfare, a spectacle of fire and steel that signaled the beginning of a new and terrifying era. In response to this unprovoked aggression, Britain and France, bound by treaties to their Polish ally, declared war on Germany on September 3rd. It was a decision that was not taken lightly, but the leaders of these nations recognized that they could no longer stand by, as Hitler's ambitions threatened the peace and stability of Europe. Yet while the world's attention was focused on the unfolding drama in Poland, other storm clouds were gathering. In the far north, the Soviet Union was preparing to launch an invasion of its own. The Winter War, as it would come to be known, saw the Soviets turn their sights on Finland, beginning a bitter conflict that would rage on through the harsh northern winter. These were the opening salvos of a war that would engulf the world. From the deserts of North Africa to the jungles of the Pacific, from the frozen tundra of the Arctic to the bustling cities of Europe, no corner of the globe would be left untouched by the coming storm. The world was now embroiled in a war that was rapidly spreading across continents. As the sun set on the year 1939, the world braced itself for the trials that lay ahead. The stage was set for the most devastating conflict in human history. As the war raged on, pivotal events began to shift the balance. A day of infamy, December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor. The Japanese surprise attack on this American naval base in Hawaii was a catalyst for change. Until that point, the United States had maintained a position of neutrality, but the shock and outrage that followed this assault led to an immediate declaration of war on Japan. This, in turn, brought the industrial might, manpower, and resources of the United States into the fray, dramatically altering the equation. Meanwhile, on the Eastern Front, the Battle of Stalingrad raged from August 1942 to February 1943. This brutal confrontation between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union became a symbol of resistance and resilience. The Soviets, defending their homeland, managed to turn the tide against the advancing German forces. The bitter winter weather and fierce Soviet resistance resulted in a catastrophic defeat for the Germans. marking their first major loss and signaling a shift in momentum. Fast forward to June 6, 1944, a date forever etched in the annals of history as D-Day. The largest seaborne invasion in history saw Allied forces storm the beaches of Normandy, France. This daring operation marked the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany. The successful invasion opened a second front in Europe, stretching German defenses thin and hastening their eventual defeat. Each of these pivotal events had a profound impact on the course of the war. The entry of the United States provided fresh resources and a morale boost to the Allied forces. The Battle of Stalingrad highlighted the tenacity of the Soviet Union, and D-Day marked the commencement of a concerted push towards victory. These decisive events signaled a turning point, but the war was far from over. The final chapters of World War II were just as dramatic as its onset. As the year 1945 dawned, the tide of war had significantly turned, and the fall of Berlin was imminent. This once bustling city, the heart of Nazi Germany, was on the brink of succumbing to the relentless onslaught of the Allied forces. In a bunker beneath the ravaged city, a man who had once held the world's attention in his grasp met his end. Adolf Hitler, the architect of this global catastrophe, chose suicide over capture on April 30, 1945. His death marked a symbolic end to the war in Europe, but the actual cessation of hostilities came a week later. On May 7, 1945, Germany offered unconditional surrender to the Allies, marking the end of the war in Europe. Yet the war was far from over on the global stage. The Pacific theater still raged on, with Japan refusing to bow down. The Allies, weary of war and desperate to avoid further bloodshed, made a decision that would forever be etched in history. In August 1945, they dropped 2 atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The devastation was unimaginable, the human cost unthinkable. The world had witnessed the destructive power of nuclear weapons for the first time. Shaken to its core, Japan had no choice but to surrender. On August 15, 1945, Emperor Hirohito announced Japan's capitulation, bringing an end to the hostilities in the Pacific. Yet, it was not until September 2, 1945, aboard the USS Missouri, that the formal surrender documents were signed. On September 2, 1945, World War II came to an end, leaving behind a world forever changed. The echoes of this monumental conflict still resonate today, a stark reminder of the cost of war and the price of peace. In the wake of World War II, the world faced a new reality. A reality painted by the broad strokes of change, reconstruction, and a collective desire to prevent such a catastrophic conflict from happening again. In the rubble and ashes of the war-torn cities, seeds of a new world order were sown. The establishment of the United Nations was one such seed, a beacon of hope for global peace and security. Born out of the ashes of the League of Nations, the United Nations was designed to ensure that the horrors of 2 world wars would not be repeated. Today, it stands as a testament to the collective will of nations to solve problems through dialogue and diplomacy. Yet, even as the world yearned for peace, the shadows of a Cold War loomed large. The ideological divide between the democratic West and the communist East led to a new kind of conflict. A conflict not fought on battlefields but in the realms of politics, economics and culture. A conflict that shaped the world for much of the second half of the 20th century. At the same time, the winds of decolonization were blowing across Asia and Africa. Nations long subjugated by colonial powers began to assert their independence. The map of the world was redrawn as new nations emerged, each with its own unique challenges and aspirations. One such nation was Israel, created as a homeland for the Jewish people in the aftermath of the Holocaust. Its creation, however, was fraught with controversy and conflict, a reflection of the complex and intricate nature of post-war geopolitics. So, we've journeyed through the prelude to the war, its beginnings, the turning of the tide, the end of the conflict, and now, the aftermath. Each stage, a chapter in the story of World War II, a cataclysmic event that shaped the world as we know it today. Indeed, it serves as a stark reminder of the devastating effects of war, and hopefully, as a lesson for future generations about the price of peace.